It's the Opperman Report. And now, here is investigator Ed Opperman.
Okay, welcome to the Opperman Report. I'm your host, private investigator Ed Opperman. You could find me at Opperman Investigations and Digital Forensic Consulting. If you just email me directly at oppermaninvestigations@gmail.com. Okay, our guest today is Abel Thomlinson. And you can find him at abeltomlinson.com. And he's also on Twitter and Instagram as Abel Thomlinson. And I found him through Covert Action Magazine. He's written one article there. He has another one coming out soon. And the article is called Radical Change in the USA, Prospects for a Domestic Revolution. So I was telling him off the air, man, I was feeling a lot more optimistic than I am. But Mr. Abel Thomlinson, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Hey, thank you so much, man.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, no, I'm looking forward to it. So tell the audience about yourself. Who is Abel Thomlinson?
So I'm an activist in Arkansas. I've been an anti-war activist since the Iraq War started. I live here in northwest Arkansas, and I've lived here since in Fayetteville since 2001. I started university there. I studied horticulture and then plant science. Started a PhD in plant science that I didn't finish because I was so consumed with the Iraq War that I became an anti-war activist, and that kind of consumed my mind, and I kind of quit my PhD and started a master's in political science, and actually was going to go to law school, and then I had some trouble with the drug laws and got in a little bit of trouble, ended up not going to law school. But prior to that, I did run for U.S. Congress, and I actually did really well for a Green Party candidate. I got 21% of the vote. And fortunately, there was no Democrats. It was just me and a Republican. And but I only spent $6,000, whereas usually to win, you need to raise millions of dollars and promise, big corporations you'll do a bunch of bad stuff for them. So I, wasn't willing to do that, and I was very much anti-war. So that's kind of not a recipe for success in the way the system is structured. And since then, I've done all sorts of different kinds of activism and journalism in Arkansas, and worked with many different organizations. And I've been for a living, I'm a horticulturist. I do organic gardening, landscaping for a lot of retired professors and their friends in Fayetteville here.
Do you want to plug your landscaping business?
Not so much. I'm so busy that I mean, it's called Green Heart Gardening, but I'm so booked up that I'm telling people no all the time. Gotcha.
Oh, and one of my questions I was going to ask you, is there much of a left community in Arkansas?
There is. It's not a majority in Arkansas, but there are various leftist organizations in Arkansas and anti-war organizations. And so, I mean, we exist. We're a minority, and but we still do what we can. Of course, neither party represents us, so we're even. If someone like me is even more alienated, it's not like even if the Democrats were in control, I still wouldn't feel represented. I kind of consider the Democrats somewhat right wing on most of the important issues. I mean, they're kind of superficially left, but and it's just like Trump is presenting himself as somewhat superficially left. And when I mean left, I mean economically left, as in socialistic left, as in economic policies that benefit the working class and the poor supermajority of the planet versus the minority of the richest oligarch ruling class that owns both parties.
We can't forget that the Democrats and Republicans, they're both capitalists. They're both on the same team, man.
Absolutely. And for me, that is capitalism is a right-wing economic ideology, and so automatically that makes the Democrats right-wing.
Then how would you describe yourself? A socialist?
I'm socialist, and I'm very much anti-war, anti-imperialist. That's been the core of my conclusion after 20-something years of activism and research about war and about what's causing it and what's the consequences. I've paid extremely close attention to it since the Iraq War started, and I've come to the conclusion it's not just about being anti-war, it's more important to be anti-imperialist, an anti-imperialist war, because it kind of explains what the wars are for. And actually my next article in Covert Action is about imperialism and propaganda, and to break down the lies that are upholding it. And, at the core, we need to understand what the wars are really for. And once you understand U.S. empire, you understand what all the wars are for. And if you don't understand that, then it's hard to really comprehend the news as it comes in. Nothing really makes sense to you, and it makes you kind of susceptible to the next round of lies and propaganda for the next war. And they just keep coming, war after war, and the lies are often somewhat similar. And, I think once you understand the full context of it, you become more immune to the propaganda.
And so then what do you think is the motivation behind the war industry?
Yeah, I mean, profit's a huge one, and it's, I mean, the profit for the arms industry and profit for all the other big businesses, the oil industry, the mining industry, there's, and just to be able to get cheap labor from other countries. But I think it's not just profit. I think it's also just a somewhat of a world domination kind of philosophy. The neocon philosophy. They explicitly said that in the Project for a New American Century. That's Dick Cheney and the other neocons that formed that. Robert Kagan, Victoria Nuland's husband. Of course, she was the architect of the Ukraine proxy war, the coup there and everything. Yeah, they've explicitly said that they want the U.S. to be unchallenged world hegemon, to control the world, and they don't want anyone to threaten that power, to even threaten it. And that's part of the reasoning behind the war with Russia going on now. It's part of their end game is the final boss, if you will, is China, and they're building the propaganda towards a war with China, and that it's all related. And some of these wars aren't necessarily going to help profit for some of our big corporations, but they are in line with the neocon philosophy of world domination. And so I think profit's half of it, and the other is just kind of this imperialistic mindset of we have to be number one, and no one else can challenge that.
Yeah, and now we have Trump talking about the Greenland and Canada.
Yes.
Where's that coming from, man?
Yes. Well. And I ended up touching on that in my upcoming article, and because the old school imperialism before the U.S. empire started, our empire really started late 1800s with the Philippines. I think that was under Teddy Roosevelt, and then it vastly expanded after that. Smedley Butler, a highly decorated Marine Corps general, he kind of blew the whistle on U.S. neo-imperialism. About overthrowing and raping all these Latin American republics for the benefit of Wall Street and the banking industry. He said he was a high class muscle man for Wall Street. He was a gangster for capitalism. Mm-hmm. But before the United States Empire, you had more I would call classical imperialism for the British Empire and Spanish Empire, French Empire, where you had these very powerful imperial powers in Europe would go and militarily dominate and take over foreign territories, and they would have administrators in those territories. They were called viceroys or viceroyalties, and they would kind of administer and control that land explicitly. And they would say, the British would say, well, India is our territory. India is part of the British Empire until, all these countries fought for independence, became independent. But the United States Empire doesn't work that way. I would call it neo-imperialism, where we don't explicitly control other countries. We have puppets and vassals. We have, whether it's a dictator or a democratically elected leader of another country, we have someone there that's a puppet, someone that will do what we want. They will do, our bidding. And if they don't, if they get out of line, that's when you have a recipe for regime change. That's when you have a CIA coup being developed. That's when you have the National Endowment for Democracy and, these other State Department arms manufacturing a coup. They'll fund what they call independent media, and they will form these NGOs to sort of manufacture what looks like a mass movement for regime change, but it's actually got its roots with the State Department, the CIA. And, you have coup after coup. We've had dozens of coups since World War II and dozens of coups from the CIA and many more that weren't successful. They tried to assassinate Castro who knows how many times. I think it's over 200 or something. It's crazy.
Hey, did you happen to Did you happen to catch the last couple of days that fellow Jordan Goudreau, the mercenary who was led that failed coup in Venezuela in 2020?
Well, I haven't paid as much close attention to the current coup attempt there. I mean, I've heard our members of the Democrats and Republicans talking about overthrowing Maduro constantly recently, but I mean, I have paid attention to the many coup attempts to overthrow Chavez and Maduro, and then they put the Guaido was kind of the quintessential kind of joke coup where they tried to say this Juan Guaido guy was the president of Venezuela, even though nobody voted for him. And
he just announced he's the president of Canada too, when Trudeau resigned.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So,
no, but this.
No, and again, why do they want to overthrow Venezuela? It's a massively oil-rich country, and that goes back to the resource element of imperialism. And,
that coup attempt in 2020, the one that was put down by the angry fishermen, right, was actually led and run by Trump's private security force. Silver Cord, did you know that? And also Rudy Giuliani's clients, drug money laundering clients, led that coup. And the guy they just arrested for that, right? He was just charged recently. He just said in court that he got his orders for that coup from the executive branch of the government.
Oh, God.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, it looks like you paid closer attention to that coup attempt than me, but there's dozens of them. I mean, it's hard to keep up sometimes. I mean, the most recent one, I guess, was in Syria. We had the former, ISIS and Al-Qaeda leader who, there's evidence to say that the CIA has been working in Syria to work and arm some of these Al-Qaeda factions to overthrow the Syrian government. And finally, a Al-Qaeda and ISIS commander has, overthrown the Syrian government. And, there's reason to believe that, Turkey and Israel and the U.S. are all involved in this regime change effort there.
Well,
and it's causing a massive disaster there. I mean,
Well, back to the war.
They try to say, sorry.
No, that's okay. But back to the war at home. Our situation here. How do you feel about this incoming administration? It's definitely more extreme than anything I've dealt with in my lifetime.
Right. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of reason to be very worried about, in terms of crushing domestic dissent even more. I mean, Democrats do it too. They, brutally beat down, Occupy Wall Street protesters and Standing Rock protesters and Free Palestine protesters. And I can certainly see Trump doing that and more potentially, beating down any kind of domestic popular uprisings. So there's, and like you said, his threats to take Greenland and Canada. I mean, it's hard to believe. It almost seems cartoonish, but I think it goes back to what we were saying earlier. Like it's kind of could potentially backfire and do some good on accident. I mean, because like I said, the U.S. is a neo-imperialism. We have this sort of hidden imperialism. A lot of people aren't even aware of it or don't know the full scope of it and how bad it really is. But he is showing, a more classical imperialist mindset, and we want to explicitly expand and control these foreign territories of Canada and Greenland and Panama Canal. And that could, disrupt a lot of the propaganda mythology about the U.S. always being the good guys, and we're always fighting these wars for good and justice and democracy and freedom. And then it's also going to harm our relationship with NATO and European allies because they're talking about Canada is part of NATO and Greenland is NATO members' territory, and he's becoming hostile with them, and they're kind of our last remaining
Panama
allies.
too.
I mean, most of the world is already united up. They're starting to unite to oppose the U.S. imperial agenda, and if we push Europe away, we'll have no one left, hardly.
So you were saying that you thought maybe there could be like a silver lining behind this, and I guess what you're saying is that the left would get more aggressive and get off their asses and stop being asleep. That's what I thought in 2020. I actually endorsed Trump in 2020 with an accelerationist view. And I said, man, if they put another Democrat, the left is going to fall asleep, and it's pretty much that's what's happened, and
Yeah, I agree with that. That once the Democrats in power, it must we saw that with the Iraq War movement. This mass Iraq War movement under Bush, and then Obama came in pretending he was a peace candidate, and it kind of put all the Democrat partisans to sleep, put all the liberals to sleep. You still have radicals like me out there protesting all the wars, But I mean, all the liberals kind of go to sleep, and well, the Democrats are the best we got. They're going to do everything. We don't have to do anything. All we have to do is vote. And so, yeah, I think that Trump will ignite more activism than someone like Kamala Harris, you know.
Right.
So I think in that sense, yeah, it could be more beneficial for, you know, radical change, as I was writing about. But
the other thing, too, is there's just so much more public manipulation through the media and social media and or gadgets and stuff like that. Because recently we had George Floyd movement, you know, and all the soccer moms were out there protesting. The soccer moms were out there kneeling down because we saw a snuff film right before our eyes, and no one could try and defend that. But then they twist it, you know, and they take it away, and they, you know, you know what I mean, man?
the Democratic Party, or
well, the media, and the capitalists, the people, you know, the media and the capitalists manipulate us so badly, you know, with all their data mining of our and how they can create ads before our eyes, you know, things we're thinking about and talking about. Yeah. They had such social manipulation, and then more recently we had Luigi, right? Right. Everyone jumped on that bandwagon. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's funny because that Luigi happened just like, I want to say a week or two after my article was published. And, you know, it kind of addressed directly what I kind of concluded in my article, that, you know, that we are an oligarchy. I mean, Princeton studies said we're an oligarchy that's overwhelmingly, you know, the rich control the system. And most common people's opinions don't matter that much to the rich that own and control the system. They fund and own the media. They buy both parties, politicians of both parties, and 90% of the time the candidate with more money wins. And then, you know, we can see how the politicians of both parties don't listen to the mass movements of people that represent the popular will. And on issue after issue, the people are ahead of the politicians. And that included, in a ceasefire in Gaza, for instance. Most of the people supported a ceasefire, want the children and the women to stop being bombed. And what does Biden and Harris do? They keep sending bombs. And Trump says, I'm going to keep sending bombs too. And so they don't really care what the public says. And so what I was saying is that, you know, I always often think of one of the best speeches in American history is Martin Luther King's Beyond Vietnam speech. And it's great if you look it up and read it, but one of the quotes in there is, you know, he's this icon of nonviolence and nonviolent action. And he quotes John Kennedy as saying that, you know, those who make peaceful revolution impossible make violent revolution inevitable. And so, I mean, most of us want peaceful revolution. We want to be able to vote for a good candidate. We want to be able to vote for good policies. We want peaceful mass movements to matter and for politicians to listen. But the people in power are not listening to us. And they're, you know, I'm not going to advocate violence. I'm not going to endorse Luigi. But millions of people are supporting Luigi, and I kind of understand where they're coming from, and I'm not going to condemn them because we are being pushed into a corner where they're making nonviolent, peaceful action more and more difficult and more meaningless. I mean, I've done anti-war activism for 20 years, and I felt like I've been banging my head against a brick wall the whole time. I don't feel like any politician in Arkansas really gives a serious I almost said a bad word. I don't think any politician in Arkansas really cares what I think, and you know, so I kind of understand the sentiment of and the reasoning behind thinking that, you know, some kind of violent thing is the way to go or is understandable, but I would much prefer the rich people to that own and control things to how about let us have some democracy, you know, stop making things less and less democratic, and maybe they should take a signal about what happened with this Luigi thing, that, hey, look what happened, you know, maybe this is dangerous where we're going, you know.
I think they took notice of Luigi. I think they really did, because you saw the response. You know, they did a manhunt, man, to find that guy. And then they parading him through the streets with an orange jumpsuit. Practically, you know, whipping him as he goes down the road, you know. That would probably be next. But now, okay, the idea of a more aggressive resistance, okay, we can term it like that. The other side has openly, they got the Proud Boys, they got the Oath Keepers, they got they got their thugs and their goons out there openly training militias. They went to the Capitol in uniform with the gear, you know?
Right.
The left, what do we got? The most recent thing is the Free Palestine movement. These kids were out there taking to the streets. Okay, great. But it's still no match. You know what I'm saying, man? We're not as aggressive as they are, and they're way more organized than we are.
Right. Right. Yeah. I mean, that's a hard thing. I think though, at the same time, you have these militias and everything, but I think that they represent a smaller faction of American public opinion, and that a lot of the more leftist anti-war movements and things like that represents a broader majority of the American public. And yeah, I mean, you're going to have the oligarchs sometimes working with these fascist militia. I could certainly see Trump working with some of these fascist militias to enact their agenda. But I got to hope, my only hope, I feel like I've lost almost all hope in the voting system as it is. And I've lost a lot of hope in mass movement activism even. But I guess the last remaining realm of hope that I still kind of cling to is the realm of public opinion, the court of public opinion, and public consciousness. And I feel like that's the last bastion of sanity and a reason for hope that, like I said, issue after issue, the public is ahead of the politicians, from marijuana policy to Medicare for all, environmental policy to Palestine to, ending the wars. Like, most of the public is usually on the side of the public good. They want what's best for everyone. And it's just, there's a huge disconnect between us and the politicians. And I feel like if enough of the public just wakes up and finally finds their power and somehow, finally rejects both parties. I think that's the key of it, is to reject both parties. And because you still have, a third of Americans support the Republicans, a third of Americans still support the Democrats, and they keep just blaming the other party. And I think only when enough Americans go, no, both parties are causing the problem, we need to say no to both of them. Like, that's the moment that I think that a drastic change becomes a possibility.
Yeah, but then there comes in the logistics of getting on the ballot in every state, which without huge financing, even my friend worked for RFK Jr. and getting him on the ballots. That's what her job was.
Right.
And he had money.
Right.
They had a lot of money floating around that campaign. Right. And even they couldn't do it. You know what I mean?
Well, I don't think Robert Kennedy kind of messed up his ability to. I mean, he pushed away a lot of supporters, and there's lots of people who would volunteer to get signatures if he'd stuck to more. I mean, especially on the Gaza issue, he kind of lost it and kind of went total Zionist, support the genocide. But it's not just that. I mean, the Democrats and Republicans have both created many obstacles to inhibit democracy and ballot access. And I've been involved in gathering lots of petitions and signatures, and it is hard work, and they've made it more and more hard and have narrowed the timelines of when you can get the signatures, and, it's a state-by-state thing. I mean, I see all those obstacles, but I still feel like, and maybe it's an irrational hope, that if enough people really, really woke up to, and it may take some kind of earth-shattering, event to, like, really wake them up, but to just see truly and clearly how both parties are not on our side. I mean, and the Democrats are almost better liars in a way.
Oh no, yeah, I would think so too. But the irony, though, too, man, is your average Trump supporter, and take away the racist bunch, okay? But the average one that say, "Hey, man, we're not getting a fair deal. Things are, we're getting ripped off." And over in Washington, we got to clean this up. That guy knows he's getting ripped off. He knows that capitalism. He doesn't know it's capitalism that's ripping him off, but he knows somebody's ripping him off. Okay,
right.
But they're so terrified of the word communism or socialism. We just had Elon Musk saying that Hitler was a communist.
Right.
He's like left.
Yeah, I mean, the word communism is so bastardized, and most people can't define it. Elon Musk can't define it correctly, and so I mean, that word is so taboo, and I felt like that was, regardless of Bernie's flaws, and the Democratic Party stabbed him in the back multiple times. I supported him, but I mean, he did somewhat remove some of the taboo from the word socialism, and that I think was kind of a success, and. So, the word communism is still extremely tainted and is toxic in American political discourse. But, it's kind of laughable when you have Elon Musk, totally.
But if we could somehow explain to these Trump voters that what you're suffering from is capitalism, that's the problem.
Right.
But the brainwashing is just so deep, man,
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, well, and I think sometimes there's other words you can use, just like, the billionaire class, like Bernie often says, and that would include Elon Musk, it's the big bosses, the ruling class, and that's what they often don't say in media. They don't use the terms ruling class or the owning class, and like to really keep repeating that, just like I think one of the main words they never use is U.S. imperialism. They never critically or intelligently talk about that in mainstream media, and so most people don't understand half of what's going on.
Professor Wolf, I had Professor Wolf on the show, and he calls it democracy in the workplace. Which makes sense. The workers own their factory. They could understand that, but you know what happens though, man, Abel? Because my average listener will say, Ed, I love your show. I love your guests. All these great topics you do here, but I don't agree with your politics. But they have no idea what my politics are. They don't understand. And whenever I do a show like this, or with Professor Wolf, or with Alan Woods, they don't listen to it. You know what I mean? They see the word socialism and says, I'm not going to, they're killing, they're eating zebras in Venezuela. I'm not going to listen to that. It's crazy.
Yeah.
How do we get around
Well,
that?
and partly for those reasons, I mostly have, stuck to more just criticism of war and empire. But, I mean, I still won't shy away from discussing that. But yeah, I do like what you said. It's like just to think of it more in terms of democracy, and the corporation is a dictatorship in a way. You have a small board of shareholders and a CEO that have the most of the power to make decisions within the company, and then you have shareholders. Let's look at shareholders. Really investigate who's really owning the shares, and it's a tiny minority owns the vast majority of shares in all the major corporations. So. I might have a few $100 or a few $1,000s in this and that corporation. That's nothing. That's pennies. It's nothing in the grand scheme of things. And you really have to have millions of dollars in these corporations to have really serious decision-making power. And so I think, framing it in terms of a corporation as a dictatorship, as an economic dictatorship is helpful maybe.
Well, then who do you see on the left to lead this movement? Jill Stein?
Yeah, that's a hard question. I mean, I guess it really needs to be millions of people, but in terms of a figurehead, it's I don't know. I guess hopefully something will bubble up through the cracks, but right now I don't have any. No one sticks out as like a great figurehead or something.
Yeah, see, when I was growing up, we had people you could look to, but now on the left, nothing. Kamala Harris. I mean,
I have hundreds of journalists and activists that I look up to, but I can see how that's not necessarily a major political leader. Bernie was it, but he kind of lost a lot of credibility, and I think he really made a massive mistake when after the Democratic Party repeatedly rigged and stabbed him in the back, and we had all this evidence for it. And I think there was a moment when he could have, in 2016 especially, when he could have. Okay, well, fine. You're going to rig this, and you're going to, all the superdelegates are going to put their thumb on the scale for warmonger Hillary Clinton. Well, that's fine. Well, I'm going to form a new party. He had that power and that momentum and organizational structure. He had the finances. He had thousands of activists, including myself, that would have helped, form a serious third party. And he really, and when he talked about revolution, that's like one of the biggest, slap in the face to all the activists. Don't talk about revolution and then you had the ability to actually form a serious third party to oppose the Democrats and Republicans, and you totally dropped the ball. I think it was one of the biggest disappointments of my adult life to see that.
Yeah, I was in Nevada when they came in there and they just stole that caucus from us, man, right before our eyes. They weren't even trying to hide it, man. And I tell you, we went down to Saturday afternoon. We went down to the closed DNC headquarters to protest an empty building. We were so upset at seeing our caucus votes taken from us, man. And all we could do was put chalk writing on the sidewalk, pictures and stuff like that. But let me tell you something, man. 4 years later, we elected card-carrying socialists to take over the Democratic Party in Nevada. People that I had guests on my show every week, man, were in power in Nevada. And we floundered it. We squandered it, man. We failed, in power. Mm. These are guys I know that I still love. So. Yeah.
Well, that's unfortunate. And I don't know if it's Green Party or some other party, or I don't know. I just feel like the system is so rigged, and it just makes it so difficult to get any kind of people-powered movement and party to gain some traction. But I think once if some can and just gain some momentum, I think it could explode. I think there is widespread frustration with both parties. I mean, you see like how many millions of people don't even vote, and it's not just because they're lazy. It's because a lot of them are just frustrated with both parties and think that both parties are corrupt and warmongers and are in it for Wall Street, and that's true, and those people are right. And so, I mean, there is some logic to. I feel like some non-voters are in a way they're voting no confidence. It is a vote. It's a vote to say no to both, and then they understand that the system's so rigged against third parties that it can be arguably less meaningful.
Yeah, if they only realized the power that we do have with the vote, because the politicians know, I do a lot of political opposition research. I was just working for the Democrats this past cycle, and they know the value of it. And you hear these people, especially on podcasters and stuff, talking about, well, it's not an election, it's a selection. I got to tell you, man, people running for these offices don't know that. They don't feel that way at all.
Right.
They're fighting tooth and nail, so...
Well, I feel like it's between the Democrats and Republicans, though. It's kind of like it's just the two parties of the rich fighting each other. It's not really a real fight. It's like a contest to see if the warmonger that supports gay marriage is going to beat the warmonger that doesn't support gay marriage. I mean, their differences are mostly superficial. I mean. And the policies, you got to think about it. The oligarchs, the billionaire class that fund both parties, I mean, they don't care about a lot of these minor issues. They don't care about trans bathrooms or gay marriage or even abortion. They care mostly about economic policy. They care about tax cuts for the rich. They care about trade policy. They care about profits for the war industry and the empire. They care about Wall Street. They care about policy for big oil. I mean, it's most overwhelmingly it's economic policy. And so if we're getting divided up over gay marriage and trans issues and abortion, things like this, they are very happy that we're willing to fight each other over that and think that we have some real choice in the election. I mean,
yeah, Trump's number one campaign ad was trans bathrooms and trans athletes. Like, that's an issue we need to even be worried. How often do you even use a public bathroom? Once a month? 12 times a year?
I don't give a shit. I'm like, make all the bathrooms gender neutral. I don't give a shit.
It's crazy. But, which would be a logical solution, right? Just make them all, whoever shows up first, you get to use it.
Yeah, make it neutral. Yeah. Make it a non-issue, because it should be. I mean, but...
But in your article here, Radical Change in the USA Prospects for Domestic Revolution, you even talk about how the Democrats thought, well, the way we're going to we're going to make some inroads by getting an endorsement from Dick Cheney.
Yeah. Oh, my God, that's so dumb. I mean, Dick Cheney is this massive warmonger, the architect of the Iraq War, and, Mr. Torture. I mean... and his daughter, too, has supported Trump, 90% of Trump's agenda, and they act like this is some great thing. Look, Dick Cheney and his daughter support us. It's like it's like pushing people away, and it's just it's symbolic of just how out of touch they are to think that that's more meaningful than trying to really put forth some serious economic policies, more in line with what Bernie stood for.
Yeah.
And we saw that. They analyzed voters' opinions of the election. Overwhelmingly, voters voted due to economics. There's a lot of people struggling out there to pay rent, and housing prices are exploding, interest rates are exploding, people are struggling to pay for basic necessities. And we saw neither party seriously address that. You had Trump pretending to, with his McDonald's stunt and his driving around in a dump truck, or a trash truck, but the Democratic Party has totally failed on that, and trying to represent the working class, and totally giving a gift to the Republicans and Trump to allow Trump to put himself forward as the man of the working class. And it used to be the Democrats did that, and I guess they gave up on it in favor of the incoming Dick Cheney Democrats.
It just makes no sense, And also, too, it seems like things are about to get a lot worse. If we're going to deport 11 million of the hardest working people in America, the price of construction, food, labor, and maintenance is all going to go through the roof. So that can make rents go up. And then with these tariffs, the tariffs, I predicted the tariffs were going to cause these price increases the first time he did the stupid tariffs. And Biden should have got rid of the tariffs. So we're looking bad times, man. And then with these natural disasters, in Florida here, January 14th, they're cutting off the hotel vouchers for people that lost their home. Where are these people going to go?
Right. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of a massive embarrassment nationwide. Just the homelessness epidemic is just seems like it's gonna increase with the natural disasters, like you say, and a lot of these people are veterans or people with mental illness, and it just shows kind of the soullessness and the heartlessness of our culture, our economy, and our politics. Just that we allow this, because look, you can go to other nations and they have some homelessness, but it's not to the level we have. Not even China. China is, I mean, not nearly, doesn't have hardly any homelessness, and they have like 90% of Chinese people are homeowners, and most of them have paid their houses off completely. They owe zero to the banks. And so if you compare home ownership, we talk a lot of bad things about China, but just looking at home ownership and high-speed rail transportation, China's kind of putting this to shame. So, if we want to keep clamoring to be number one, we need to do some things that are actually put some meaning behind that. Having the biggest military and the biggest prisons doesn't necessarily something that should be the number one thing you should think of when you pretend to be number one. It should be like, are we taking care of everyone? Is everyone very well educated? Is everyone very well housed and well fed? And if we have homelessness and all this, it kind of undermines this people trying to say we're number one.
And back to Luigi, everybody knows the healthcare system in this country is insane. The greed and the corruption. And then these health insurance companies are making billions. It doesn't take a genius to figure out, if you're national, all that money going to the insurance company. It's not going to melt.
They're unnecessary middlemen, the insurance companies, and same with the drug companies. You got to think when Trump threatens to take Canada, you got to think all the Canadians are like, oh no, I don't want to lose my health care, our healthcare system is ridiculous. It's the most expensive in the world, and we, people go into debt and lose their houses and everything, or serious illness. It's ridiculous. My wife's from France, and she's like, oh my God, she misses her healthcare in France. Like, you don't have to worry
Biden
over there. It's more humane.
Yeah, Biden just did that thing where they're forgiving some medical debt, and they're no longer allowed to put your medical debt on your credit report. So, the guy's doing a couple of good things, man. Shockingly enough.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, there are some tiny little, low-hanging fruit that sometimes the Democrats or Republicans or Trump they'll throw a little bone here and there, but when it comes to, giving you a big, healthy dinner, they're not going to do that. It's overwhelmingly going to be, whatever's best for the billionaire class. And it's kind of it just shows that they have contempt for, the poor and the working class. That really, it's just almost shocking how they don't even try. Like, they could just try and meet us halfway, and give us something. But it's usually.
Yeah, and for some reason we've chosen the military industrial industry as our big money maker. You know what I mean? There's a lot of things we could focus on, that would improve life, rather than taking human life on such a grand scale, And my whole lifetime, I've never seen anything like this Gaza stuff, man. Like, and the images are so available to us.
Right.
And we're still,
they're available on social media. I say the mainstream media is largely censoring most of the reality of it. Same with the Ukraine war; they're censoring the truth about that war too. They're manipulating, distorting the reality of it.
And the whole.
But the war industry is very profitable, and that's a big part of the problem.
Yeah. And these companies like Raytheon, they'll have little businesses, little factories in every single district, So they've all got a representative, a congressman that they can go to and say, "Hey, bring money. It'll bring money to our town here if you increase our budgets."
Right.
Yeah, it's just overwhelming, man. What's up against us? Do you ever just think, man, you want to give up?
Well, yeah, that would be easier, but no, I mean, I don't. I feel like I have a duty and so I feel like a world citizen, a U.S. citizen, but also a world citizen. I feel like some responsibility to my species and humankind to try to stop the millions of people from being killed and millions of people from suffering from all these things, most of it unnecessarily, or the threat of nuclear war and just human extinction. I feel like I have to do something, not just for myself and my family, but for the whole human species. I feel some duty.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I can't stop myself either. But the question is, what makes someone like Abel Thomlinson say, listen, I see the overwhelming odds, but I'm going to keep my chin to the grindstone here. I'm going to keep pushing that stone up that hill, where other people will say, you can't do nothing. Nothing works. You can't do nothing.
Right.
Doesn't matter who you vote for.
Right.
What creates one person? What creates another person?
Well, I mean, I'm motivated by a deep sense of love for everyone, but and not just like I love my wife or my kids, but I feel like a sense of connectedness and concern and care for all people. But I don't know. I mean, there could be a little bit of irrationality there, if in the sense that maybe maybe it is potentially impossible, but I still try anyway. Am I being irrational? It's possible, but I'm still going to try anyway.
I tell you, I always talk about it. I had this guest on the show one time. He wrote a book called Moral Courage, and it was about people around the world, and journalists or freedom fighters and stuff like that, and who just went up against overwhelming odds. And it's like a coffee table book with photography in it. And when you see the faces of these people, man, they all have that same look, that moral courage, that want to do the right thing. They see right and wrong and they want to do right.
Right.
Where you got someone else like Dick Cheney, he sees right and wrong and he just wants to steal. He just wants to, the blood, out of your veins, man.
It's funny because I feel like Dick Cheney and George Bush and the Iraq War kind of shaped me politically. Before that, I just started at the University of Arkansas in Fayetteville that year, 2001, when 9/11 happened. And I was politically a blank slate at that point. My parents never really pushed any politics on me. They never pushed any religion on me. I was kind of like a blank slate. I got to kind of to define politics and religion on my own terms, however I wanted. And I didn't really give a crap and didn't pay attention, or didn't give a darn about politics, and didn't pay much attention, and even up until 9/11, and then I sort of was like, this is weird, what's going on? And then it was really the lies, the build up to the Iraq War, and that was over after 9/11. They started building this case through the Iraq War, and the more and more I investigated and paid very close attention to it, the more and more I could see they were lying, and now we have a database of 935 lies that they told about the Iraq War, about weapons of mass destruction in Iraq and connections to 9/11. None of that was true, and they lied us into a war, and 1 million people ultimately were killed, 4,000 American soldiers, and thousands more by suicide. And so you have this mass death and misery, and it's being done in my name. I'm supposed to be an American citizen. This American government's going and bombing and killing all these people in my name, and so I felt like that was really wrong, and I need to do something about it. And so since then, I've spent hundreds, if not thousands, of hours of my time, doing all kinds of activism.
Oh boy! So we're talking to Abel Thomlinson. You can find him on his website, abeltomlinson.com. He's also on Twitter and Instagram. So the article we've been talking about in Covert Action is the one called Radical Change in the USA, Prospects for Domestic Revolution. And what did you say the next one's going to be about?
It's about U.S. imperialism and the propaganda that upholds it.
You got to wonder, too, man, what causes people to join the military in the United States of America, When you get in there, first of all, you had a 20% chance you're going to get a dishonorable discharge. You lose everything they promised you, you know what I mean? But then you get out of there. It's a life of domestic violence, petty crimes, addiction, suicide, homelessness. How do they trick people into even supporting that? How do you trick? Well, it's mostly
I would say
economic.
One of the core, the economics part of it, college and healthcare and all that, but career opportunities, and training for jobs. But I'd say the other half of it is it goes to the very core of what my next article about. Like one of the core elements. There's many ways that the mainstream media and corporate imperialist politicians lie to the American public. Both parties do it. And there's many methods and mechanisms of propaganda that they do, and I kind of break that down in my article. But I would say the most important almost is the one that's not even spoken. It's silent. It's silent propaganda. It's the very fact that they never mention U.S. imperialism in an intelligent and critical way in mainstream media or presidential debates. You never hear it. You never hear it. So most Americans either, A, do not realize America is the world's most powerful and harmful empire in human history, or B, they think that's a good thing that we have this massive empire. And so it's the silence of, and so what is the core mythology that they're promoting? And it's that all of our foreign policy is for good. It's for, we're the good guys. We're spreading freedom and democracy. That is the core lie. And if more young people understood that what we're doing abroad isn't spreading freedom and democracy, that it's really about corporate power and the interest, profits for the oil industry and the weapons industry. You're not going to fight for freedom and democracy in Iraq. You're going to fight for the oil industry. You're going to fight for Lockheed Martin. You're going to fight for the profits of Raytheon and the millionaire and billionaire investors that own those corporations. So I think that key lie right there is half of the reason young people are willing to go put their lives on the line and their mental health on the line. I mean, you go and kill for these big corporations, and you start to feel bad about it, and then you get mental disease, and you have suicide, and then people can't function in society, can't have relationships, can't go to work, they become homeless, get addicted to drugs or alcohol, and
or you become a cop, because I think 40% of cops are ex-military.
Okay. So I feel like exposing the reality of American empire and propaganda could help solve that. I'm not totally opposed to military. I would be supportive of a purely domestic, just control the borders and control it right within the coastlines. But this whole, we have 800 foreign military bases and $1 trillion a year we're spending on, and that isn't for the goodness.
Wait, Abel, didn't we just have a drone invasion or some kind of orbs or something all over New Jersey? And we got the biggest military on the planet, but we don't know what they are. We can't get rid of them.
Well, we can carpet bomb Iraq or Afghanistan, but we can't put out a fire in Los Angeles. I mean,
oh God, that's heartbreaking too.
How about we have a domestic take care of our domestic situation first, But yeah, Smedley Butler said that general, highly decorated general. So you want to put an end to war, you take the profit out of war. You would nationalize the weapons corporations, stop allowing them to make profits, and you would allow only the young men or women potentially that would be doing the killing and dying to be the ones that voted for the war. You would have a referendum among military-aged men, and you wouldn't allow just old rich men that aren't going to go fight, to be the only ones that are voting. They're not going to be the ones dying and getting mentally harmed. And then he also said, restrict the military just within a small distance from our coastlines, and don't be going overseas and causing all these harms to people.
Yeah, but a lot of these countries too, they like having the American bases there because we bring money into their country too. The soldiers there spending money. So it's. There's going to be, when I had Alan Woods on the show, he said, after slavery, there was pains, there were growing pains in the United States. There were industries that were in trouble. But yeah, you have to make accommodations for that. So the same thing, man. After capitalism, there's going to be huge growing pains. Sometimes I worry. But it doesn't seem like capitalism can succeed. You know what I mean? It seems like we're at the end of stage capitalism in the United States of America. Yeah.
Yeah, I think capitalism, imperialism, the U.S. system is you could argue it's built on a house of cards or on a bed of quicksand. I mean, there's so many unsustainable elements and moving parts, and it's a miracle that it's made it this far. I mean, and I think a big unsustainable element too is the national debt that just keeps exploding. What is it 36 trillion or something? It just keeps exploding like $1 trillion every year. And we're paying hundreds and hundreds of billions of dollars in interest to service the debt every year. And it's just, to me, I just don't see how that's sustainable. And then you have the economic war with Russia that's massively backfired, is massively harming European economies, and it's just undermined faith in the U.S. dollar as the world's reserve currency. And now you have all these countries clamoring to join BRICS and for de-dollarization, to form an economic system that's separate from the U.S. economic system. And then you had Marco Rubio complaining about this, that well, if the world starts trading in currencies other than the dollar, we'll no longer be able to sanction them. That's half the arm of American imperialism. He was crying about it. Oh, we can't sanction anyone if they're trading other currencies. And well, hey, most of the world's like, hell yeah. I mean, they're like, this is great. We're tired of being punished with sanctions. So I feel like the rest of the world is kind of rising up to put some balance in the world. You've had a unipolar world since the fall of the Soviet Union. The American military and economy has dominated the world, and I feel like that's coming to an end. It started after this Russian proxy war kicked off, and we tried to shut down the Russian economy, and that has really, I think, accelerated the move into the multipolar world, as they say, into where. Well, I think it's a good thing if there's some balance in the world. That you shouldn't have just one country dominating everything. So I'm kind of a little bit inspired by BRICS and the de-dollarization movement. That there would be balance in the world. I think that could create more of a situation where peace becomes more possible.
Well, let me ask you something. I only got a few minutes left, okay? And let me see the time here. Very little. We got like 9 minutes, okay? And one of the last lines in your article is, meanwhile, we are told to worry about virtually non-existent, inconsequential Russian involvement in our elections, which, debunked Russiagate. I mean, you really, I know a lot of guys say that, but you really think that there isn't, a ton of Russian money floating around in U.S. politics?
No, I'm saying that that's not true. That we were told by mainstream media and the Democratic Party that there's this massive Russian involvement in our elections. I'm saying that no, that has been debunked, just like Russiagate. That's not true. That if we're really worried about foreign involvement in our elections, we need to be looking at Israel. They were bragging. The Israel lobbyists.
That goes without saying.
They were bragging, but just recently they were bragging about spending over $100 million to destroy progressive primary challengers. Especially within the Democratic Party. So if we're worried about foreign interference in our elections, then we should be overwhelmingly concerned about Israel. And they're causing us so much trouble. A lot of the wars in the Middle East are partly because Israel has pushed us to do that, and they fund so many of our candidates that they're able to get a lot of their policy agenda.
Well, I tell you,
we're funding and arming their genocide, and it's because Israel lobbies so powerful.
No, but Israel is on another planet. Forget it. Israel goes without saying they got a ton of money. Forget them, okay? But I'm talking about Russia, though, man. Even the Russian, the FBI agent in New York who was investigating the influence of Russia and Trump just went to prison for taking money from the same oligarch he was investigating. McConnell.
Well, I don't know the details of that. Maybe you could send it to me, but I just know that a lot of the I should be more articulate on this than I probably am. But I'd say Aaron Mate is a journalist I really, really respect on these issues, and he's really investigated Russia deeply, and he has kind of debunked a lot of the information we were told about Russia and Russiagate, and that a lot of that it was massively exaggerated. The extent of Russia's interference in our elections, and for me, a lot of that was developed from Hillary Clinton. She was trying to make excuses for why she lost to Trump. She immediately started a lot of this Russiagate stuff, and was it CrowdStrike or something like that? She worked with them and tried to manufacture, evidence of this Russia helping Trump win and everything.
Wait, so you're not
and
convinced?
It's not that I don't like.
You're not convinced of the Russian, the Guccifer hack into the DNC computers?
The which one?
The Guccifer .1. Yeah, the Russian hack into the DNC computers, into Podesta's
I'm not
email.
convinced of it.
Yeah.
I'll have to defer to Aaron Mate on this.
Yeah.
I need to look. I'll need to double check.
No, I don't want to put you on the spot. And a lot of people have your opinion. I don't know, man. For me, it seems like it's so black and white. I had Craig Unger on the show with the
Russia did.
Yeah. Russia definitely was behind WikiLeaks. All that stuff that was released by WikiLeaks, 100%, I think, through a hack into Podesta's email. I'm convinced of that. And then this. No one talks about this FBI guy, the head of the Russian investigation, who is in prison right now for taking money from Russians. So, but I know a lot of people agree with you there. I just don't see it. I'll tell you a quick story too. I had Lev Parnas on the show. Remember Lev Parnas? He was Rudy's partner, and he went to prison. He talks about.
No, I don't know who that is.
Then I'm wasting your time. Then, but anyway, it's part of the Hunter Biden laptop, okay? And I know guys who have examined the actual Hunter Biden laptop in Rudy's apartment. Get this: Sean Hannity, Lev Parnas, and was supposed to be Rudy Giuliani were getting on a plane to Vienna to meet with the Russians to pick up a copy of the Hunter Biden laptop. And Rudy, at the last second, canceled the trip. He says, I can't make it. And Lev Parnas got arrested on that plane. And Sean Hannity kept going. You got to look up the Lev Parnas stuff, man. This guy's gold.
Okay. Maybe I'll reach out to you and see if you can send me some of that.
Yeah, I'll send you some shows, yeah. Yeah, some of these interviews. Okay. I did a ton of stuff on that Hunter Biden laptop. Let me see how we're doing. I hate to hit you with the stuff, that's like a curveball at the end of the show.
No, it's fine. It's just there's certain journalists I trust so much that maybe I do. It does deserve more investigation on my part, but I overwhelmingly focus on military and imperialism. Yeah. So, on an issue like Russiagate, I deeply trust Aaron Mattei's award-winning journalist, and he's debunked a whole. I won't say he's debunked 100%. I'll say he debunked at least 50 to 75% of the talking points about Russiagate and the Russia collusion, all that stuff that we were told a lot of lies about, and manipulated about a lot of that stuff. But I don't have enough details to be an authority on it personally. I'm sorry.
Yeah, and what was the journalist's name again?
His name's Aaron Mattei, and there's a link to one of his articles that's in that sentence that you quoted about.
Okay.
And that, yeah.
Okay. So what do you want to leave us with, man? We got about 1 minute left.
Well, I'd say things look pretty bleak, but we got to try to find some reason for hope and reason to keep going on and try to create a world of peace and justice if we can, if that's still possible. And I think that starts with awakening of consciousness, awakening to the realities of imperialism and propaganda and capitalism and the reality of both parties and their anti-democratic nature. And if we can wake up enough and reject them and form some kind of movement, you just do it in the mind even to start. If we can form, this movement of the mind and just for people to wake up to a lot of this, then that's kind of the basis of any reason for hope. I lost a lot of that in terms of the election system myself, but I feel like there is still reason for hope.
Well, I hope I haven't been discouraging to you today, man, because I do want to encourage you. Yeah, I want to encourage you, man. It's very, it's good to see a young man. You're young to me, okay? Still out there fighting every day of the week, man. Thomlinson.com. You could find him there. The article we're talking about today is in Covert Action magazine, Radical Change in the USA, Prospects for Domestic Revolution. Mr. Thomlinson, thank you so much.
All right, thank you.
You got it, bro.
Have a good one.